What is going on, everybody? We are doing a little bit of a different format than I've done before on this channel. As you can tell, I am not out on the slopes or out dirt biking right now. We're actually just in my room, and I recently had the honor of taking a trip out to France where I got to ski some incredible mountains. My French pronunciation is not really good, so I'm probably gonna butcher the names of all the resorts that I ended up going to, but we ended up going to Chamonix, Mont Blanc, and we skied all the mountains under the Grand Massif Pass. They're all going to be on screen right now. The point is, it was an absolutely incredible experience just getting to go out to France and ski all these different mountains. We got to experience a lot of different terrain that they had to offer out in the French Alps. I was going to do a top 5 video. There ended up being too many runs that were just so good. I ended up making this list top 7. So without further ado, this is my top 7 ski runs that we skied out in the French Alps. We had an absolutely incredible time. One thing that I will say though is they severely lacked in tree runs, which are my absolute favorite type of skiing that there is. But man, these couloirs out there were incredible. Kicking off our list was one run that I actually got to do 2 different times. It is the alternate route of Aigle Noir at the Samoëns mountain. This run was just an incredible blend of steep and rocky terrain while also being like really open and nice. It had some of the best snow on the mountain considering how awful the snow conditions were while we were visiting. It was completely shadowed by the mountain, and it had a section that went up to 60 degrees, which was absolutely incredible to ski on. My little sister Carmela ended up having a lot of really great crashes on this one, but there was a much mellower route. We opted for a backcountry route underneath of the lift that you were able to cut over from, and it was about 50 odd yards or meters to the left of where the actual run was, but they cut and bottlenecked into the same area. Some of the spots were fairly harrowing, especially doing it with my little sister. There were a lot of no fall zones where there were cliffs underneath, and she ended up taking a good 900-foot slide down the one slope, but luckily there's nothing at the bottom of that. It had a really interesting little crevice on the one part of it that got super steep, but generally it was a super nice run, consistently fun, great length, so it cracked my number 7 spot, but it just didn't have enough character to push it higher up on this list. Coming in at the number 6 spot, I actually picked this one run called Diamant Noir, which means black diamond, and it was a black circle because their rating system is different over there. And this run was at the Flaine mountain. It was a giant, wide open chute down right through the middle of the Flaine mountain. It had a bunch of different sections that varied in steepness with big moguls so you could just kind of sidestep down the whole thing. The views were absolutely incredible. It didn't have a lot of length on its side, but it still was just a generally super nice run, and this is actually a marked run in the resort. Although I would watch, it gets icy, a lot of the parts were super shaved off. It wasn't super challenging, it was pretty low consequence, so it was a nice chill run. I mean, it was all inside of the resort boundaries. A lot of great little rock drops off to the side. It had great side hits down through the whole thing, so just cutting on and off, in and out of the moguls was really fun. Low risk, but awesome run. The run that I picked number 5 for this video is at La Brévent mountain at Chamonix, Mont Blanc. It is a backcountry run that is underneath the TSD Cornu lift. It was just this absolutely wicked couloir that went right underneath of the lift. The video could not show how steep this run actually was. The conditions when we went were absolutely terrible. So this run was absolutely baked in the 50-degree sun when we did it. So it was covered in huge ice chunks that were absolutely harrowing if you were going to attempt to ski this run. But we ended up at the top of this 100-foot cliff in a massive field of ice chunks, but I was able to cut down back into the main chute and that run was really great, but it felt like skiing down a flight of stairs. It reminded me a lot of the chutes at Park City, which had a lot better snow conditions, but man, if that run had great snow conditions, that would have been one of my favorite runs of all time. It was a solid 1 kilometer just straight down through the center of the mountain. It was as scenic as a run could be with the beautiful view right out in front of you. It was just the conditions were so bad. You slipped, you weren't stopping, but otherwise, that run was just incredible, and that will always be a run that sticks out to me, so I had to include it on this list. Another run coming from the same mountain at La Brévent was C.H. Bozon, and this was actually named after a famous skier. I think he was an Olympian. I'm gonna have to fact check that in editing. It was a super long and incredible black run from the top of Le Brévent. You had to take a separate cable car all the way to the top of the mountain, and once you got there, the only route back down was this black, so you skied it or you took that cable car right back down, and that run was absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best views I ever had of the French and Italian and Swiss Alps, because this resort is located right on the border of Italy and Switzerland. There was a nice catwalk that went down the whole thing. Some of them were on like massive 3,000 foot cliff edges, so if you're scared of heights, it is definitely not the run for you, considering that some of the sections peaked at about 42 odd degrees, and you were skiing down that with great moguls, but if you took a slide, you were sliding. The top was a lot more mellow, but once you got right into the meat of it, there were a lot of places where you could cut right off the catwalk and ski down in some steeper, more challenging sections. Nothing there was crazy, but it was an experience doing that run because it genuinely just had a lot of things going for it. It was a pretty remarkable run, and it's impressive how they were even able to work that run into the mountain with how extreme the terrain is there. Great run. I would definitely recommend it if you are going there. It really shouldn't have been a black, to be honest. My number 3 pick is another run from the Samoëns mountain, and it is kind of on the way going over to Flaine, but it is the Couloir right underneath of the Verant lift. Holy cow, we ended up doing this run about 3 times during our trip, and it never was boring any of the 3 times. It had an average pitch of around 45 degrees with some sections peaking at around 60 degrees, which is shown on screen like right about now. It only had a width of about 3 meters, so you were making tight cuts, and there were a couple great falls on it where you just aren't stopping on this thing. But that run was incredible. It had nice stair steps all the way down, and it was just, you could absolutely plow right through it. It was backcountry. It was kind of like just outside the resort boundaries, but there was still a lift over it, so it wasn't like, it's not like you were in the middle of nowhere if you ended up having a problem on it. But that run was just so fun, and those big cliffs on it, man, it was just a great run overall. Super fun, super tight. It felt wicked to ski. It looked pretty wicked. It had to be on this list. I just enjoyed it way too much. My number 2 spot is also at the Flaine Mountain Resort, and this is the run Agate. It was a huge wide open run that was kind of a mix of backcountry skiing but also in the resort skiing. You could cut on and off. There were some incredibly fun cliffs, although I will say the snow was super hard packed when we were there, so we didn't really get to do many big cliff drops. The most we ended up doing was about 15 feet. But those cliff drops still made the run. There were like huge holes on it, and just the wide open aspect of skiing is something that you don't see very much. It was all above tree line, so the only thing you really had to worry about was the rocks on it, but dodging those rocks was really no big deal. It was just hit after hit all the way down. There were some incredible elements on that run that just made it a journey, and it was long. I think my GoPro videos from it were about 20 minutes from top to bottom just on that run, and the bottom of that run is still at the top of the Flaine Mountain, and then you have miles of skiing left after that. So it was genuinely just one of my favorite experiences on a ski trail. I ended up doing it 3 times during our trip, and it never got boring because it was so massive that there were so many different routes you could take. I ended up taking 3 different routes every time, hitting different drops, hitting different banks, and skiing in and out of the resort. So it had to be on this list, and it had to be high because that run will always stick out to me. What an incredible run. I'm so glad I was able to do it and get over to that side of the mountain and hit Agate. Topping off my list, again, from the Flaine Mountain, there were a lot of Flaine runs on this video, but man, there's one that really stuck out to me, and I'll tell you what, that run that really highlighted my trip was Le Combe de Gers. It was an incredibly beautiful, scenic, and ridiculously long backcountry run right off the side of the Diamant Noir traverse, and you could just drop right in on this bowl edge and ski for miles out. It starts with a tremendously huge bowl section that peaks at about 35 degrees, so it was fairly mellow but wide open, and the snow was actually good there because it was fairly shaded from the sun. Skiing it was high speed, scenic, action-packed, beautiful fun. It was just an experience and a half. I ended up skiing it twice at our stay at the Grand Massif Resort, and the different routes you could take on it were absolutely incredible. We were able to ski up on the side of the bowl. To get to it is a little bit weird and complicated. It took us like till day 5 to figure out how to actually get there. But once you do get there, man, the skiing is just incredible. It ends up bottlenecking towards the bottom. If you cut way over to the right, you're able to get onto the run called Onyx, which will take you back to a little tow rope lift that'll take you back up the mountain. So there is no hiking involved in this backcountry run, which is just a major plus if you wanted to do this run, because there was no hiking involved at all, unlike some of the other backcountry runs that we ended up doing in France. Once you get towards the bottom, it's more of your classic backcountry skiing where you're kind of weaving in between tight bush areas, but none of it got bad at all. It was generally just super fun, long, high-speed skiing throughout the entire experience, and it may be one of my favorite runs that I've ever done. So if you are looking to plan a trip to the Grand Massif, it would definitely be worth your time to head right over to the Flaine Resort and ski Le Combe de Gers. It's probably about a black run there, but it's not very difficult, and I'm telling you, it is worth your time to ski that entire run from top to bottom. Just being able to go in some of that untouched backcountry snow off the side of the lip is just so much fun, and it was one of the highlights of my entire trip out to France. But with that being said, that was my top 7 list of my all-time favorite runs that I skied during my trip out to the French Alps, and man, did I have a good time. All the full videos of this trip will be in my skiing playlist, which I will have linked right up in the corner right here for you to all check out. It is also in the descriptions, and I'll link it in the comments for you to check out my full videos if you want to see the action-packed skiing process that unfolded during our 5-day skiing trip in the French Alps. I appreciate each and every one of you who stayed and watched this video all the way through to check out my favorite runs, and I hope that you will hit that subscribe button and watch some of my other videos so that I can reach my watch time. Thank you all for watching, and I will hopefully see you guys in the next one. Peace out.